State. I told you guys earlier, I saw a tweet earlier today from a Mississippi State baseball fan that was directed at an Ole Miss baseball fan, and he was like, "So, pal, are we just going to take turns making fun of each other this year?" Mississippi
I'm
State
willing to offer you that, yes.
Lost a pair of midweek games to Austin Peay. The second of which included 6 runs for Mississippi State that came via bases-loaded walks and an 8-4 lead in the 6th inning, only to ultimately lose that game 13-10. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Sorry, I was in the process of pulling up the box score and was doing that from memory. I know, Borky, it's right here in the notes. I just had not clicked on it.
It's all right.
So they lose a very different type of game yesterday. On Tuesday, Mississippi State pitched it quite well with 13 strikeouts and no walks, and yet they couldn't score. Yesterday, they give up 13 runs to Austin Peay, who used 6 pitchers in the game. Mississippi State also used 6 pitchers in the game. They walked 5. The big inning for Austin Peay was what? The 8th and the 9th. 3 in the 8th, 4 in the 9th to come from down 10 to 9.
State's final 2 innings, they give up 7 runs. In the 8th and 9th innings yesterday, State gives up 7 runs on 7 hits. They walked the batter, and that's how they lost. And you mentioned, the walks. You talk about Ole Miss only having 5 hits. State only had 6. They have 10 runs because they got 6 runs walked in. Austin Peay should have won this game easily. They had a pitcher with some control, they would have won easily.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what gives, hey, Dad?
Well, some of us kind of knew this team was going to struggle and tried telling some people. Nobody wants to
Yeah, but
listen
you didn't have
to
them
that.
losing it twice to Austin Peay in the midweek.
I knew they would struggle, though. I knew they're not a good team. They've lost these games the past 2 years. They didn't change anything. Nothing about this team changed from this year to last year to this year. Who did they add? Who's a difference maker that they added? They didn't add anyone. And, you're putting a guy out there, Tyson Harden, on the mound to start the game, a guy who last year had a 14 ERA and teams hit 412 off of him. That's a guy who should be processed. Now, no offense if his parents are listening. I apologize. But what about his performance to this date has shown you that he can pitch in the SEC or even at Mississippi State in Group of 5 games? You bring in Carson Ligon from Miami, and you think he's going to be a big part of your rotation. Third of an inning, 3 hits, 3 runs. He gave up 2 home runs. That got them back in the game.
That's the guy that people thought was going to be a weekend starter, right?
Yeah, for the guy from Miami. And it just hasn't. I mean, I think he's battled a little bit of arm issues early in the preseason, but now he's pitching and he's not pitching well. And then we have the issues with the lineup that I talked about yesterday. I mean, State has 5 automatic outs in a row in their lineup. Larry, Jordan, Hines, and Chance are all hitting 300 or above. The next 5 guys who started, Highfield's hitting 100. Kohler pinch hit. Hijack, who's in center, where Jake Mangum and Rowdy Jordan and Colton Ledbetter have been, is hitting 133. Nate Chester at third hitting 167. You hope that Logan Kohler can come back in and take over that job. Johnny Long behind the plate hitting 125. And Dylan Cupp, who's a true freshman, at least there's an explanation for that, is hitting 118.
And by the way, yesterday those 5 in the order combined to go 1 for 15. Those 5 spots in the batting order.
Right. So once you get past, the first 4 guys, I mean, it's just cruise control for everybody. And nothing changed this offseason. That's why I didn't understand anybody who was optimistic about this team. If they had been able to bring in Luke Holman and Braden Montgomery, then yeah, maybe I'm looking at them a little bit differently. But they didn't. They didn't bring any of those guys in. This team's problems start at the top. And I mean, I'm at the point now where I will be amazed if there's a turnaround and Chris Lemonis is able to save his job. I'm more likely to believe that he's let go mid-season the way they're playing right now, because how much of this can you take? You know, what happens if you lose a game this weekend at Georgia Southern? You're already sitting on 4 non-conference losses. When you've played 4 teams, none of them will be above 100 in the RPI when this season is over. Not one of them. So if you got 4 losses to those teams, what are you going to do when you're playing LSU and Vanderbilt and Florida and Arkansas and Texas A&M and Ole Miss? You might only win 5 or 6 conference games. This program, from where it was when they won the national title to today, it's not the same program anymore.
Whether it's with Chris Lemonis or somebody else, how quickly can State get it back?
Well, that's the thing about the transfer portal, right? I mean, you would think that with everything Mississippi State has to offer as a program, they could get high-level transfers in if they had the right coach in place. So maybe next year it would just be good to be back in the postseason. But, you know, in 2 years, you should be back to where Mississippi State wants to be.
By the way, Georgia Southern 1-3 coming in this weekend. They lost 2 of 3 in the opening weekend to Maryland and then lost on Tuesday night to Georgia Tech. We're back.